You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Umlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Umlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Jack Oujo, who's a tax-focused financial advisor, former professional baseball umpire, award-winning wealth manager, author, community mentor, who transformed career setbacks into long-term success in finance and service leadership. Welcome, Jack.
It's a pleasure to be with you today, Jean. I'm looking forward to enjoying our talk today.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so Jack, you wrote a book. Why don't you give us the name of the book so I don't mess up the title? And then I'd love to ask some questions about what that's all about.
Yeah, the book is called Too Smart to Be an Umpire, and it takes you through my story, which is officiating my way through college and then trying out for professional baseball with absolutely no expectations, just to get it out of my system. I had an accounting degree, and I ended up doing 8 years in the minor leagues, 6 winter balls, almost a life sentence in baseball. And I was almost there and then got released. It's me not getting to the major leagues is like asking an appellate judge, why didn't you ever make it onto the Supreme Court? It's a small number of people that get selected. And I found myself 30 years of age with a pregnant wife and no money. And I had to start over again. And in Too Smart to Be an Umpire, I take people through that process. If you're a baseball fan, takes you through a lot of baseball. And then what specifically happened between being broke and creating a multimillion-dollar business and then exiting out of the business as well.
Okay, so I love that you are process-oriented like me. So why don't you share a little bit about your reinvention process?
So during my time in baseball, I realized that I needed a plan B. Not everybody gets to the major leagues. So plan B involved just having some accounting background. I believed that successful people, what I observed from being in professional sports, that successful people in business had a lot of education. And so my process was going to be try and get a job in public accounting. And I was fortunate enough to get hired by EY, Ernst & Young, and get as much education as possible. And over the next 4 years, I received a master's in taxation, CPA, a certified financial planner, various securities licenses, hoping it would lead to something. So I realized there had to be this foundation of education. And then when I went into business, I found a partner because, again, I had no money. Neither did my partner, quite frankly. We were borrowing on credit cards, whatever it took. And we created a written business plan to try and get us to the next level. And inch by inch, things started to take off.
Okay, so what about the process? How can people, you've written a book about it. So why don't you tell us, what's the first start of the process if we want to reinvent ourselves?
You need to have a written plan. You need to write down what successful people work with the end in mind. What are you looking to get out of this thing? In my case, I was just looking to get some sort of a career. And so I had a written process. I had a written timeline of how long things were going to take place. For people that want to go into business, again, writing things down, putting pencil to paper or an Excel spreadsheet, doing the math on things and seeing if your idea is even worth exploring. That is critical. And then if you're going to go ahead and do it, you just need to basically connect the dots. A lot of people start doing things and don't have a plan in mind. They have no idea what they're doing, and they get themselves into bad situations. So in my case, having no money, most advisors would say, why would you borrow on credit cards? And I did the math on it, and I came to the conclusion that if I picked up one new client a month for about a year, the credit card debt would be paid off. And once the business became very successful, there was no debt. I'm a big no debt guy, especially for people that are at or near retirement. But when you're looking to get started, you have to take on some risks, and you just need to do the math on things. And a lot of things become self-evident on that. That's the broad strokes of it. And then once we got started in the business, as things grew, What I learned is that you need to hire people. You need to get some help. I think a lot of people in business make a mistake of uh, of trying to do too many things themselves. McDonald's is a perfect example. The McDonald's brothers thought they were the only ones that were possible of making the hamburgers. And in the beginning, I found myself doing tax returns 7 days a week. I was doing all the investments by myself. I made the mistake of hiring the lowest cost type of accountant. I learned that it's cheaper to hire the best people, get the best people in, and they were probably some expensive lessons along the way. But once we had good people in and good process, you just need to repeat it over and over and over again, and then the business takes off.
Okay, I love that you're talking about the plan and the timeline and the finances and making sure that we're all in on that. Now, what about the emotional side of reinvention?
Well, in my case, it was very emotional because for me, being released from baseball was the equivalent of the death of a very close person. So part of me is in mourning. Okay. So, from an emotional point of view, I had to be self aware that I'm going through this mourning phase and I was going to be working my way to get over this mourning that was taking place, if you will. And I found that going to class at night after working all day was very invigorating. Every time I passed a professional exam or I moved forward with my master's degree in taxation, I found that very rewarding. And anybody that has a timeline of events that's leading to an ultimate goal should get some reward by going through the process. The process itself should be very rewarding, and that helped me out tremendously. So it's emotional, deciding whether to do something, and as you're going through it, there's a lot of fulfillment that you're doing things that other people aren't doing. You realize most people are working 9 to 5. I was When 5 o'clock came, I then went to school. Okay. On weekends, I'm studying. And I remembered having young children. And I said, I want you to look around the parking lot of our office right now. Notice how my car is the only one here. I go, we're hoping that there's a reward for this sometime down the road, which my children, who are now grown, ultimately understood. That's why daddy was working his butt off. But you have to work smart too, which is why you need a plan.
Okay, so you're a hustler. You've hustled a lot, and I did too. When you were talking about the parking lot, well, I would be taking care of my kids till 7 p.m. and then work till midnight because I realized there was no way I was going to build a business with the little time I had when I was taking care of my kids. So I get it, but it's not forever. So when do you actually stop the hustling?
The hustling stopped probably after working so hard and not really seeing a financial fulfillment right away. There was a point where, after I had all these letters next to my name and I started dealing with clients, wealthy clients, all the dots became connected in my head. I could be dealing with a very wealthy family, and all of a sudden I'm recognizing issues one by one by one. And I was like, I get this thing now. I remember coming home and saying to my wife, I think I have this thing down. I said, I really get it. And there was a point where my income tripled. Okay, from one year to I remember going from $60,000 a year to $200,000 a year in the 1990s, and then it went up from there. And I was like, I have this down now. I know what I'm doing. I found this process that works, and now we're going to go with it, and we're going to be off to the races. And I found tremendous fulfillment in that. There was this grinding and grinding and grinding, and then finally it hit, and everything just took off after that. Everything just took off. It moved exponentially to a level that I would have never believed in my life.
Okay, so there's a lot of grit here.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And people generally don't have the emotional intelligence to withstand the hustle and the hard work for very long because they're all looking for a really quick payoff. You did not do that. You sustained and sustained.
That's the mistake people make. Again, I realized in professional sports, okay, that people have to work hard and be talented and work smart to get what they want out of this life. And I was determined not to do that. because I saw people in sports, they spend 5 to 10 years in sports, and then they go into business or whatever, and they expect instant gratification, and they often don't make it. That I realized if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to take my time, even though it's going to be a grind, but realizing that when you're 30 years of age, you're still young. And I remember doing the math. I go, if I go from 30, if this takes me 4 years, 30 to 34, the years are going to pass by anyway. Okay. If I work 9 to 5, I'm going to be 34 years old and still find myself in the same boat. And people have to determine what do you want out of this life? And I just
Mm.
think in America, there's such a great opportunity. I think you do get disproportionately rewarded in America. You get what I'm getting now is more than what I think I deserve. Okay. But I'm happy to get it. But you do get disproportionately rewarded in America if you can succeed at the right things. Again, when I was an umpire, my last year in professional baseball, there were 2 teams that drew over 1 million fans, and my W-2 for the year was $10,000. And I was one of the top 100 people in what I did for a living. So there's things in our society that capitalism rewards and that it doesn't reward. And people have to make decisions what they want to do. And I would also suggest people to find mentors. Look at people that have done what you're looking to do, and don't be afraid to ask them for advice. I have somebody that contacts me once a month out of the blue saying, what do I need to be doing to be in your shoes someday? They could be former players of mine, from kids that I coached, people that know me from business, but successful people are happy to share their advice if people ask. Problem is people don't ask.
Well, some people do. Okay, so what we're saying here is it's wildly illogical how people are remunerated.
Yes.
Well, would you agree?
Yes. Yes.
Wildly, because when you say that you're one of the top people, you're making $10,000, it's not logical, correct? Now, you're one of the only people I've ever met that has said something like, I am actually receiving more than I deserve, because people in America tend to think that they deserve more than I think they deserve. Would you agree?
I'm in the country club circuit, and I sit in the front of the plane when I fly, and I thank God every day for the blessings he's bestowed upon me, because I realize I know what it's like on the other side. And I think we just happen to be in a business that's very lucrative. Okay. There's emergency room nurses, okay, that are barely scratching out a living and are providing a tremendous value to our society. Teachers, coaches, uh, they provide a great, where I depart from people is having government intervene too much, despite the fact that I felt like I was getting a bad deal from baseball with my pay. I kind of got it. I'm like, I've chosen this life. This is what I've chosen to do. There's other choices. Nobody has a gun pointed at my head, but people have to make those decisions, and they have to go in with their eyes open on things. But there's people in my business that actually think they deserve all the money they make. We're successful, we're this, we're that. And I think a little humility is good.
I love your humility. And as I said, I feel like there's a movement of people thinking they did one thing 3 times and they deserve $1 million dropping on their head, which I think is also wildly illogical.
May I add, though, a lot of people, and again, I learned this as a financial advisor. I've cautioned clients, wealthy clients that have retired from a successful business. And I said, look, you've had people kissing your butt for the last 20 years. Now you want to go start another business. Realize that you've won the game here financially. You've scored the touchdown. Don't mess it up. Okay. There's Kurt Schilling in Major League Baseball, lost his entire net worth, $50-60 million the first year he was out of the game, because people think they believe all that nonsense that people are telling them all the time. So you have to stay humble.
So he lost that because he started a business that failed? Is that what
Started a
happened?
business and he leveraged it. He leveraged it at triple what he put into it. And the business went bad and he had to make good on the debt, and he went bankrupt. And he's an otherwise very smart person.
Right, but he's not a business person. He's
Not at that.
something else.
Not that, no.
Right. Okay. So, well, I love the humility, and that's refreshing. That when somebody says, I don't deserve, because nobody says that except for you. As you said, there are people in your business that say, of course I deserve this. And I mean, they do, but you're humble enough to be grateful for what you have, right?
And I also learned that, appreciating the employees that work for you. I mean, I was right at the beginning coming up with quantified bonus programs so that our employees can share in the success of the business. When I just retired this year, I sold the business to 2 of our employees rather than taking outside private equity money. There's things that you can do you can run a business and run it well, but you can still do things in a moral way, in my view.
I completely agree. Okay, so apart from the reinventing yourself, what else is in the book that's really important that you want to share?
There's lessons that I learned in baseball, and I just mentioned one of them about how to treat employees, because people in baseball do not treat their lower paid employees well at all. Preparing for worst case scenarios. When I got my release from baseball, obviously you have to start a career over. So as a financial advisor, I have coached my clients on preparing for worst case stock markets. Most advisors are out there projecting these lofty rates of return, but the stock market has gone down 30% 6 times since 1950. And when that happens, people need to buy groceries. By preparing my clients for worst case scenarios, when 2008 took place, and the market sold off, our business went up by 400% within a few years after that, because we did the things necessary to protect our clients. So preparing for worst case scenarios, having a process that works. If you talk to the best coaches in sports, Nick Saban, a golfer, they all have a pre-shot routine. I coached the state championship team of 14-year-olds in baseball, all done by having a process that works. And that's what people need to focus on. Process, process, process. Too many businesses are having, I was a number one advisor in our firm for about 12 years. I never once had a meeting with our staff saying, our goal is to be the number one advisor this year. Every meeting we always had was on what is our process? What is our process for first meetings, delivering plans, stories, client follow-up, beating up the minutia, and then the results take care of themselves. And people don't want to hear that, but it's true.
Okay, so you're basically saying we should be process oriented in everything we do.
Yes, I think processes are very important. They need to be changed. You're always trying to get to this place we never get to, but you are always looking at those things because it can be repeated. Okay, it can be repeated and it can be taught. It can be taught to your employees rather than, you know, uh, people that think they have to be the Lone Ranger and do everything by themselves. I see a pizzeria owner can't go on vacation because they're the only ones capable of making the pizza, florist, things along those lines. You have to be able to delegate and coach your staff.
Okay, so we have to get really good at SOPs as well, standard operating procedures, because a lot of businesses are doing the same things over and over again, but they're not actually laying down the process so they can hand it to new employees or other people. They're redoing it over and over again. And that's something that I see because they're not taking the time to actually go, hey, what's our SOP here? Have you seen a lot of that as well?
100%. And I was guilty of it in the beginning. We had to commit these things to writing, to paper, teach them to everybody, and they evolve as the business grows as well. So everybody needs to be on board. You can't be operating a business by the seat of your pants and never expect it to grow, in my view.
Okay, so what do you feel is the most important factor that has made you successful?
I think we live in a society where people call 800 numbers and the phone's answered by artificial intelligence. I think it's basic customer service that businesses don't know how to do. When I started in business, I took the position that I had a job where I was on call 24/7. If a client called me on Saturday, the call was returned. Email on a Sunday night, I got back to that client because I was trying to create raving fans for our business. Okay, so having a Four Seasons level, when you think of the Four Seasons hotel chain, you think service. And having that service model creates raving fans who then become the advocates for your business and help it grow exponentially. And then doing what you say you're going to do. Again, the umpire in me was, can stand up to pressure, has a consistent message. That helped me a lot. And I just created, I think I'm a nerdy salesman, but I created raving fans and our clients brought us all the business that we really needed. I mean, we have over $800 million under management in an organically grown business without any acquisitions, starting with the first client. So that's pretty good. It's very good in the wealth management business.
Oh, for sure. No, well, the thing is, people don't have this idea of going the extra mile. They have this idea of doing as little as possible. So I agree with the extra mile because nobody does it anymore. And actually, I'm the same. Because when they know they can get a hold of you and it's like, oh, they're actually on our side and it's not just to do the minimum. And people feel that when the minimum is being done, it's like, well, I just did the minimum. They want VIP
Yep.
service, correct?
Yes, 100%. And you have to role play with your employees. I'll give you an example. I give all of our employees are given credit cards where they can do random acts of kindness within the securities compliance rules for our clients. Somebody had a baby, there's a death in the family, what have you, they can send a little gift over, a handwritten thank you note. We expect that out of the people that work in our office. You have to go over to their house and deliver something. Go the extra mile and say, wow. I always viewed anytime there was a problem, and again, I used the restaurant example. Think about if you had a situation at a restaurant, the steak was undercooked, what have you. You can judge that restaurant based on how they handled the problem. So I always advise our people that problems are opportunities because the client's saying, aha, this is where things go awry. And that creates an opportunity to show your level of commitment to servicing the client.
Good thing, because then they see, okay, this is how they act when there's a problem and things aren't smooth. And you're correct. I think that people are looking for that. Like, how is it going to be when things aren't smooth? How are they going to act? Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. It could be almost anything. And when you go that extra mile and do that for people, and I could go on example after example of how we've done that for clients over the years, you then own them. Okay. You've created loyalty. And next time it's Thanksgiving and Uncle George says he just lost his job and he has a 401k, they go, you got to call Jack. That's if they don't say that was a culture I instilled in the people in our office. I go, if our clients aren't saying that about us, they say, they're okay. We're never going to grow. You're never going to get raises. You're never going to get to the next level if we don't create that atmosphere with our clients. That has to be the standard around here. And that comes from the top of a business too. By treating, again, in my business, my employees came first, the clients came second. Because I think when people go into an office or a business, they can tell if the person at the top is running a good ship or not. And you have to have this culture of loving your employees, and then those people in turn loving your clients and customers.
For sure. Okay. So, Jack, what is some mindset or philosophy that you'd like to leave everybody with?
The mindset is first of all, do the things necessary in your life to deserve success. As a financial advisor, I felt like my educational credentials were equal to or above almost anybody in the industry. So I feel like when I'm competing with other advisors, I deserve it because I did more work than them from an educational point of view. Do what you say you're going to do. Under promise and over deliver, and service the heck out of people. Make sure that your clients are happy and get feedback. Get feedback from your employees and your customers, trying to get to a place that you're never going to get to. Vince Lombardi said, in trying to achieve perfection, we achieve excellence. And again, process results in winning. That's what happens.
Okay. Well, Jack, thank you so much for sharing all this about your success and your book. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this particular episode, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Umlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Umlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.